Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala, thumma amma ba'd. To proceed. So today, inshallah, we will try to finish 5 Qawaaid. And we have the 5 up here. The first one is al-man'a ashal min al-raf'. Al-man'a ashal min al-raf' is prevention is easier than removal, obviously. So man'a is prevention. Ashal, easier than, min than, rafa, removal. The second one is al-badal yaqum maqam al-mubdal. Al-badal is the substitute. Yaqum maqam takes the place of. Al-Mubdal, the original. The original. Then we have ينزل المجهول منزلة المعدوم or ينزل المجهول منزلة المعدوم. That would be a majhul, that's the unknown. If you say ينزل is treated منزلة المعدوم like the non-existing. جعل المعدوم كالموجود احتياطا. Treating the unknown like existing by way of precaution. This would be an exception from this. Okay. جعل المعدوم, to making, to be literal about it. Al-ma'doom, unknown. Ma'doom, I'm sorry, non-existing. Non-existing. Kal-mawjood, like existing. احتياطاً, by way of precaution. الفعل الواحد يبنى بعضه على بعض مع الاتصال المعتاد ولا ينقطع بالتفرق اليسير. So, a single act, فعل الواحد. واحد single. فعل act. The single act يبنى بعضه على بعض. Built is built on itself. بعض is part of it. Part of it is built on the other part. So built on itself. مع الاتصال المعتاد with customary continuity or something like this. Customary continuity. So let's start. المنع أسهل من الرفع. The first one, prevention is easier than removal. This is the القاعدة الرجبية 134. This is the legal maxim of Imam Ibn Rajab, number 134. Prevention is easier than removal. So to prevent occurrence and to prevent the legal consequences of an act, it's easier to do it at the outset than to do it in the middle of it. To prevent the occurrence of a ruling is easier from the outset than removing it after it has taken effect. الشافعية يعبرون عن ذلك بقولهم الدفع أقوى من الرفع. So the Shafi'is would say دفع is repelling, averting. Repelling is stronger than removing. It's proverbial. When it comes to medical sciences, when it comes to medicine and healthcare in general, they always say al-wiqayatu khayrun min al-ilaj, which would be prevention is better than treatment or better than cure. This reflects the importance of precaution and prevention in Islam and avoiding falling into legal difficulties. The way you avoid falling into legal difficulties is not to get yourself into them. Because it will be easier than seeking solutions afterwards. This qaida applies in worship and transactions. So let's take some applications. If you don't have water, if you have water, can you ever start your prayer with tayammum? Okay, you can't. You have to make wudu. If you started the prayer and you found water, now they disagree. We will end up in the madhab, according to the formal position of the madhab, not using the qaida. But we disagreed because we were concerned about the qaida. So the people who said that, if you started the prayer already, carry on, you do not have to, interrupt the prayer to make wudu. These people are considering what? Considering this qaida, Now that we started, you don't have to break the salah to make wudu. But had you not started, we would have told you, you cannot start. You cannot start. Well, eventually in the madhab, they will say you need to interrupt your salah and make wudu. In the formal position of the madhab. It's a matter of disagreement. If a man, for instance, possesses the right to prevent his wife from ihram for Hajj, that's not the obligatory Hajj. Hajj, that's not the obligatory Hajj. She wants to make Hajj, he tells her no. She cannot put her ihram on. If she embarked on Hajj already, can he demand that she removes her ihram and, she ends her Hajj? That's another controversy. So why is there controversy? We said that before she embarks on Hajj, he does have that right. But after she embarked on Hajj, it becomes controversial. Eventually in the madhab, they will not use the qaida again, and they will say, yes, he can ask her to take her ihram off or to end her Hajj if it is not an obligatory Hajj. So when it comes to food and drinks, for instance, this qaida, this is not a perfect example, and I do admit this, but it is mentioned. Just to give you an example from food and drinks. To add vinegar, while you're making khal or vinegar, to add vinegar at the beginning to prevent fermentation would be okay. But if fermentation takes place, adding vinegar afterwards would not be okay, because this would be takhleel khamr. This would be turning khamr into vinegar. It's not permissible, but it would be permissible to prevent the fermentation of khal from the beginning. But like I said, not a perfect example, because if we already prevented the fermentation of khal, of khal, then there is no point in saying anything is haram there, because there's no khamr at any point. Then in personal status, a difference of religion prevents marriage, but difference in religion does not dissolve marriage immediately. Does not dissolve it immediately. It will end up dissolving it, but doesn't dissolve it immediately, because continuity is different from beginning. When will the marriage dissolve? When the iddah ends, when the waiting period ends. Can she also wait for him? And this is a long controversy, we're not going to get into it here. But many scholars say even after the iddah ends, the marriage continues. She needs to refrain from, being his wife until he accepts Islam, but the marriage does continue, according to many scholars. Therefore, if he comes back, if he accepts Islam, there is no need for a new contract. A woman, for instance, can prevent herself, in other words, can refuse intimacy. If her husband had not paid her the prompt portion of the dowry, right? Like they got contracted, and he, before consummation, he was supposed to pay her the prompt portion of the dowry, and he did not. Can he demand consummation? He can't. She can refuse intimacy, she can refuse consummation, because consummation had not taken place. What if consummation had taken place? Can she refuse intimacy until he pays her? No. In this case, she cannot, because that's continuity and beginning are treated differently. Islam prevents slavery initially, Well, you're going to read my appendix. So it is in the book, al-Umdat al-Fiqh, at the end about slavery. So there is no more slavery, etc. But Islam did not prevent. Islam prevented enslaving Muslims in war. So when Ali radiallahu anhu fought al-Khawarij, did he take them, the captives, as slaves? No, he did not. Okay, but if you're already a slave and you become Muslim, that doesn't free you automatically. Okay. So this is al-mana ashal min al-rafa. It says prevention is easier than removal. Al-dafa aqwa min al-rafa. So repelling is easier than removal. And you want to take this as a ruling in life. It is a ruling in life. To avoid trouble at the outset is much easier than after you get yourself into trouble. Prevention is always better than treatment, and like I said, it applies in general. So to avoid, invasion and occupation, for instance, at the outset is easier, because once it takes place and it takes effect and takes hold, it becomes much harder to remove it afterwards. Like, look at, how long Britain stayed in the subcontinent, for instance. Look at how long look at the First Crusades. First Crusade could have been aborted, could have been easily aborted. They just were so cavalier, they were so casual about it. They didn't pay attention, and they were divided among themselves, and they were, and they never thought that the Crusades would succeed the way they did. But it was like a stunning success. It was not expected, it was a stunning success. So how long did for how long did we have Crusades? For about 200 years. For how long Bayt al-Maqdis was occupied? For 80 some years after the First Crusades. All the Crusades that came afterwards have basically failed to a great extent. Maybe the fourth did not completely fail, but it was comical. The fourth was comical, because they gave them Bayt al-Maqdis basically without any fighting or anything. But that was basically an agreement between two people. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, to prevent invasion and occupation at the outset is much easier than removal, because afterwards, look at how long the French stayed in Algeria, look at how long, Britain stayed in Egypt, etc. It's not easy. Anyway, the second is al-badal yaqum maqam al-mubdal. The substitute takes the place of the original. Substitute takes the place of the original. بدل يقوم مقام المبدل. And this is also a big qaida. This is the expression of Imam ibn Qudama. Imam ibn Taymiyyah said, الأصل إذا لم يحصل به المقصود قام بداله مقامه. The original, if it does not fulfill the intended purpose, its substitute takes its place. Imam ibn Rajab has a similar statement, but it's a little bit more detailed. Like usually, Ibn Rajab does not really worry about brevity in his Qawaaid. He worries about clarity. He worries about clarity. So he says, يقوم البدل مقام المبدل ويسد مسده ويبنى حكمه على حكمه في مواضع كثيرة. The substitute takes the place of the original, fulfills its function, and its ruling is built upon the ruling of the original in many cases. So he added a lot of clarity, but it doesn't sound like a qaida anymore, because a qaida should be like memorizable, like should be short and memorizable. And that is always the balancing act between brevity and clarity. Brevity has its purpose, clarity, but it's very difficult to basically judge in this matter. Anyway, if the original is unattainable or fails to achieve its intended purpose, we resort to its substitute. When we resort to the substitute takes the place of the original, fulfills the function of the original, and is subject to the same rulings like the original. So this qaida is rooted in what? Removal of hardship. Because, the first option is not always attainable. And this is something that you also want to internalize this in your behavior, in your way in life. A, B, and C, you move from A to B, from B to C. You don't just like give in and give up and say, well, I didn't get A, that's it. It's the end of life. No. Move on to B. B may end up being better than A. So anyway, there are, the evidence for this qaida is that many times the Sharia gives us options. فَلَمْ تَجِدُوا مَاءً فَتَيَمَّمُوا. And if you don't find water, then make tayammum. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us options in the expiations. You fast 60 days. You feed, 60 people. You free a slave, you fast 60 days, you feed 60 people, and so on. Or you free a slave, and then you have the options of al-ta'am and kiswa, and so on. And then you have, what else? Fasting 3 days. This is kafarat al-yamin, expiation for oaths. The first one was kafarat al-zihar, expiation for zihar. So anyway, the idea here is that, Allah gives us substitutes because the original may not be attainable. So if A is not attainable, and sometimes the expiations are arranged sequentially, and sometimes they're given as options. So sometimes they're given as options to choose from, and sometimes they're arranged sequentially. If you can't find A, go to B. Can't find B, go to C. There are conditions for applying this qaida. There must be a need for our overriding benefit to justify a shift from the original. If Allah gives us options, then we choose whatever we want. But if Allah gives us the options in order, then there must be a need to shift from the original to the substitute. And the substitute must fulfill the same objective, and this should not result in the loss of any rights. Let's take some application. If a person wipes over his khuf and then removes it, if you wipe over your khuf in wudu, a couple of hours later you remove your khuf, what do you do here? In the madhab, eventually they will tell you repeat your wudu. But they disagreed over this. Some scholars in the madhab, based on the qaida, said that you just need to wash your feet because, wiping substituted for the original, which is washing, all up until this time. So now that you removed your socks, then you just need to wash your feet. You don't have to repeat the whole wudu because wiping had substituted for washing. Of course, Imam Taqiyuddin ibn Taymiyyah said you don't need either because you did not break your wudu. Taking off your socks does not break your wudu. It's not one of the invalidators of wudu. So what is the madhab? Repeat the wudu. What's another position in the madhab? Wash your feet. What is Imam Taqiyuddin's choice? You don't have to worry about it. Don't do anything. Yes? They are saying that it has not been violated, mu'ala, succession has not been violated because wiping had taken the place of washing. Wiping has taken the place of washing, so there is no interruption. This gap is filled. This gap is filled. That's the rationale. No. If you have like something clear from the Prophet, they wouldn't disagree. Now, if you have 40 eligible individuals attended the Friday prayer and they're later replaced, substitute takes the place of the original. So the Jum'ah is valid. Because you know that we have a quorum for Jum'ah. 40 is a quorum for Jum'ah, or 50, or 12, or 3, it depends on your madhab. But everybody has basically a quorum for Jum'ah. And if you have a quorum for Jum'ah, what if we lose quorum? Then the meeting is over. Then you will basically have to pray Dhuhr. You can't do Jum'ah. Now, but what if you have like 3 congregants and one of them leaves and another one comes in, like at the same time? At the same time, they switch. The substitute takes the place of the original, so your quorum is valid. Now, if a zakat prayer, if a zakat prayer substitutes a full nisab, substituting nisab for nisab, like we say that you have. Because keep in mind, this is Hanafis don't worry about the interruption of nisab. Hanafis worry only about the beginning of the year and the end of the year. Shafi'is and Hanbalis worry about the interruption of nisab. So if the nisab is interrupted, like what is the nisab or the threshold, zakatable minimum, however you want to translate this, or cash nowadays, like what is it in gold? 4,000 or more now? Okay, so $4,000. If the $4,000 dropped to 3,500, then the howl is interrupted. The lunar year is interrupted, and then the interruption of the howl results in what? We start from when you come back up to 4,000. But if it is sheep for sheep, if it is the same, gens, the same species, and there is substitution, your nisab dropped, but that drop was substituted by something of the same species, then is the howl interrupted? No, it is not interrupted. It's not interrupted. So, like 5 of your sheep died, and you earned 5 at the same time, then it's not interrupted. What if it is different species? It becomes interrupted, except in the case of what? Gold and silver and cash, because they substitute for one another. They substitute for one another. They don't according to the Shafi'is, by the way, but in the madhab, in our madhab, they substitute for one another. So whatever is a substitute, then the nisab or the hawl is not interrupted. If we have substitution within the same species or across currencies, cash, silver, and gold, across currencies, cash, silver, and gold. If a mushaf is replaced with another, so they do not allow this selling a mushaf. It's a long story that we can talk about some other time, but if a mushaf is replaced by another, that substitution is not considered a sale. So whatever disagreement or concerns they have over the selling will not apply here. If the skins of sacrificial animals, like we know that when we make al-Haj and we slaughter, we cannot sell any part of the animal. We can't even give the butcher, part as a compensation. However, what if you have the skin of the animal and your neighbor wants it, and they will give you in place of that some household items that you could benefit from? You could do that. You could do that switching, because that is not selling, it is substitution. And in this case, since these are household items that perform the function of the skin or the hide, then it is permissible substitution. The other big one is replacing a waqf. If we know that waqfs are fixed, but what if you have a waqf, even a masjid, when we say تعطلت منافعه, it fell in disuse, like it became not usable anymore. Then in the madhab, the formal position of the madhab, unlike the other madhab, we will say replace it. Sell that masjid, buy another one that can be used. So, and that's why when they, like in small town America, Sheikh Muhammad Taqi Uthmani, for instance, who's Hanafi, not Hanbali, but this is also the position of Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani. So when he basically gave a fatwa, he said that this is the position of Imam Ahmad, and it is also the position of Ibn Hassan al-Shaybani as far as I remember. But when they asked him about, small town America and masajid, communities that leave, sometimes they open a factory in a small town, and then you'll have a Muslim community work at the factory, and then the factory closes down and the community leaves. Should we just leave the masjid, or what do we do? So he said that you could sell it and replace it. That is the formal Hanbali position. That is the formal Hanbali position. And that is why takhayyur, as far as the ulama making takhayyur, or tanaqqul for the amma, is a completely valid idea, because otherwise we fall into hardship. Okay. But what if the masjid is still usable, but there is like a purpose to replace it, with a much better masjid, much better sort of location for the community, much wider. This masjid has become, old. Maybe there is asbestos in the basement and we can't go down. Maybe, it's just like too tight for the community. And we can't keep it and buy another one. and we sell it and buy another one. That is a position in the madhab chosen by Imam Taqiyuddin ibn Taymiyyah, because here he said it is not only disuse or being completely unusable, but also the benefit that you will accrue from replacing the waqf. What is his position? What is the evidence for this position? This position is very tricky, by the way, because you will have to, the community needs to be on board. The community needs to be on board. If not, then that position cannot be made by a small group of people. The community will have to be on board. But the evidence for this position is Umar ibn al-Khattab, when people breached the treasury, Muslim treasury, Bayt al-Mal in Kufa, when the people, breached it, Umar ibn al-Khattab told them to remove the masjid from where it was and next to Bayt al-Mal, for there will always be someone coming in and out of the masjid. So Bayt al-Mal will be, under the guard of the Musallin that are coming in and out of the masjid. And the place of the masjid became the market of the date sellers, Suq al-Tammarin, the market of the date sellers, or Suq al-Tammarin. And that's Umar anyway. So, Umar was just given advice to someone yesterday about this. Umar has a different line, in fiqh, even among the Sahaba, because I just don't want you to get frustrated with this. There is always in fiqh two different orientations. There is one that's a little bit more revivalist, tajdidi, and that one that is a little bit more muhafiz, conservative. And you found this in the time of the Sahaba, during the time of the Sahaba, because don't tell me that, Ijtihadat Umar are because he is one of the Khulafa al-Rashidin, and alaykum sunnati wa sunnat al-Khulafa al-Rashidin min ba'di, follow my sunnah and the sunnah of the rightly guided Khalifas after me, that this basically, if the Sahaba heard this justifying Ijtihadat Umar in this way, they will accuse us of heresy, blasphemy. They will actually not consider it Muslim to begin with, because Umar does not legislate. Umar is not given power of legislation. Khulafa al-Rashidin, they do not legislate. The sunnah of Khulafa al-Rashidin is not different from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. What the Prophet was saying with regard to the sunnah of Khulafa al-Rashidin is what? Their approach, their understanding, their approach, their application. Not that they have a sunnah different from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So Umar was like this. Umar is the one, as we've said before, that made the diyah, the blood money, not incumbent or not binding on the aqila or the paternal kin, but rather people in the same registry, because people moved around. So in our response to social changes, the idea here is whatever it is, whatever line you take for yourself, you will have to have husn al-dhan. You'll have to have good thoughts of the rest of the Muslims. So you don't need to hurl the accusations of extremism or laxity or this or that. And your fellow Muslims are not traitors. They're trying to do their best. If they have a more conservative leaning, like the son of Umar, Abdullah, more conservative leaning, then that's because they want to defend the deen and protect it. And if they have a more revivalist leaning, that's because they know that it is necessary for the viability and vitality of the deen to have ongoing ijtihad. Anyway, but the point is, so we have those three different positions. You can't replace the waqf no matter what. You can replace the waqf if it is not usable anymore, and that is the position of the madhab, in the middle. And then you have the position, one of the views within the madhab based on Umar's removing of the masjid in Kufa, is that you can replace it if there is a better place. But that will be a very small minority position. You have to keep that in mind, because according to the three other madhahib, you can't replace it no matter what. We are the ones who are like avant-garde, but when we say that you can replace it if it is not usable. But then, then you can push it all the way and say you can replace it if there is a greater benefit in the new place. Anyway, so but this all apply, is under the same qaida. Next, if we say if an owner of a capital, where we're still here, original, substitute takes the place of the original and takes its ruling. So if an owner of a capital, like we are in a mudaraba partnership, the mudaraba, capital from someone, labor from someone, they divide the profit between them, profit sharing. So if you are in a mudaraba and I am the person who contributed the capital, and you are the laborer, and you are the laborer. If I die, and my children tell you, carry on, we're substituting for our father. We're taking the place of our father. Can you carry on? You carry on. Is it a new contract or a continuation? Okay, so they disagree. They disagree. And the madhab actually is, it's a new contract. But, okay. But they disagree within the madhab. So they say, some say new contract, some say what? Continuation. Okay, so if it is a new contract and the money I had given you now is in the form of merchandise, turned into merchandise, because you buy and sell and stuff. So you bought something with this money. Now, what you have now is what? Arad, property that's, not currency, merchandise. Can the merchandise be the basis of the new contract between me and you? They disagree again, because that issue is controversial within the madhab. Yes, so what is the position of the madhab? They cannot. So it's invalid. I'm just telling you that we're going away from the qaida now. We're going away from the qaida. But if you apply the qaida consistently according to a position in the madhab, if you apply the qaida consistently, you will say, these heirs took his place completely, assumed his sort of place in the partnership completely. It's continuation, we don't have to worry about it. The urud, we don't have to worry about it, just carry on. Like whatever it is that you are happening, we are taking the place of our father completely, without interruption, seamlessly. That's the point of the substitute takes the place of the original. We're taking the place of our father seamlessly. Okay. Because if it is not seamlessly, then we'll have many bumps in the way. Now, if it is the other way around, and the laborer dies, now they all agree that this partnership is not valid anymore. The laborer dies, and there is merchandise, and the laborer dies. The heirs of the laborer do not take the place of the laborer. And what's the distinction? Because the capital provider, passed on his capital to his heirs, but can you pass on your labor? You can't. So that's why. Next is substituting monetary value in zakat. a substitute monetary value in general, in zakat and in other things. So if you owe, the idea that if you owe me something that you have to return, like a mithli. Mithli means what? Fungible. Means that you have to return it not in the amount, but the exact thing, or a substitute for it. Like 1 kilogram of wheat. Is this fungible or non-fungible? You can substitute for it easy by 1 kilogram of wheat. Okay. But a certain like animal or piece of furniture, this is called, non-fungible. There's qimiyat and mithliyat, non-fungible, qimiyat. Have to, but even when it comes to mithliyat, like you should return 1 kilogram of wheat. Well, I don't have 1 kilogram of wheat. You can return the value of 1 kilogram of wheat, and that substitution is again part of this qaida. And Imam Taqiyuddin ibn Taymiyyah, and it is a position in the madhab, said it is applicable in, applies this qaida very sort of freely and extensively. So he says, for instance, that zakah, like if there, like 1 sheep is due on you, 1 sheep is due on you, and you don't have the sheep. You have camels, and 1 sheep is due on you. You don't have sheep. You just have 5 camels. Now, do we ask you to travel, for instance, or to do extra work to buy a sheep because 1 sheep is due on you, or can you just pay the monetary value? And Imam Taqiyuddin says you can pay the monetary value, and all switching is okay for him. So even in Zakat al-Eid, the disagreement that we always argue about, he said if it is more beneficial for the poor to give them the monetary value of 1 sa of tamr and 1 sa of food, then you give the monetary value. That's the annual disagreement. Because the Hanafis only the ones who said you can give the monetary value. Maliki, Shafi'is, and Hanbalis said no, you have to give food, not the monetary value. So Imam Taqiyuddin took a middle position and said, you can give the monetary value if it is in the best interest of the poor, the recipient, because the interest of the recipient trumps the interest of the donor in these cases. So if it is in the interest of the recipient, you can give the monetary value. He also said that you can give the monetary value if it is difficult otherwise. So you're not going to need to travel to buy something, food, or like a sheep that's due on you in zakat. You can just give the monetary value. The next is ينزل المجهول منزلة المعدوم. So substitution is a big qaida. البدل يقوم مقام المبدل. The substitute takes the original of the takes the place of the original is a big qaida. ينزل المجهول or ينزل المجهول منزلة المعدوم, that the unknown المجهول will be treated like ma'dum, non-existing. Let's take some examples. And keep in mind that, this qaida, conflicts with another qaida, right? ينزل المجهول منزل. We will treat the unknown as if it is non-existing. Unknown in what sense? Unknown even after it was known to exist. We've known something to exist. Now it is unknown. Should we treat it like it is existing or non-existing? There is a qaida that says الأصل بقاء ما كان على ما كان. The default is what? Continuity of the original assumption or something. I have it under the يقين لا يزول بالشك, right? It's under اليقين لا يزول بالشك, أصل بقاء مكان على مكان. So how did we translate it there? But how do you translate this? الأصل بقاء مكان. Presumption is the continuity of original assumption, or the default. Huh? That's how I translate. Okay. So anyway, so with that qaida in mind, let's take applications, for instance. If I have the wife of a missing person, because that's like a clear-cut example and a funny example as well. Obviously, yeah. But nowadays, keep in mind, nobody is saying that she has to wait until he's 90 years old. It's different because there's much better communication. But the wife of the missing person, if the missing person, went missing on a perilous trip, then she will only wait 4 years. Afterwards, will she be able to get married? Yes. Yeah, and we will divide his inheritance. We're treating him as non-existing, even though الأصل بقاء مكان. The default, the original presumption is continuity, right? And we don't know for sure that he died. But it's been 4 years and we haven't heard from him. And he was on a perilous journey. What if it was not perilous? We will wait until he's 90 years old. The madhab says, wait until he's 90 years old. We'll discuss. It will be the rest of the ayah. I'm just going to finish the 2 Qawaaid. So let's take some applications. Another easy one. Yeah. To ensure that he died, because they said that usually people don't live beyond 90 years. Wow, we can have a whole session. We'll have a whole session on this issue, but I'm just gonna the wealth of one who doesn't have known asaba. Someone who died that didn't leave relatives, didn't leave known relatives. Now, why are we needing this qaida here? He left no relatives. What is asaba anyway? Asaba is your nearest paternal kin. Does he have a nearest paternal kin? Of course he does. He didn't fall off the tree. He is one of the children of Adam. He comes from that family. So we are certain that he has a nearest paternal kin. But who is his next paternal? We don't know. So therefore, the majhul here, the unknown, will be treated as non-existing. We will not we will take his money, put it in the treasury, Bayt al-Mal, because there's no known nearest paternal kin. Okay. Lost property after 1 year is taken into one's ownership. If you, like the luqata, lost and found, you pick it up, you take it, you are tu'arrifuha, you announce it for 1 year, and then what happens afterwards? It becomes yours. And certainly there is disagreement on what becomes yours, but whatever it is that would become yours. Because we have lots of disagreements, including, is it just Athman and Luqat al-Haram and many other issues. it isn't, you may read this. So in the madhab, all of it, whether it's athman or urud, whether it is, property or currency or anything, it becomes yours after 1 year of announcing. Why? Because the owner, we're sure that there is an owner. Sure, there is an owner, but the owner is unknown. So we're treating the unknown as non-existing. Purity of street mud. Purity of street mud. We're almost certain during their times, because animals are going to, like they're all over the place. In the hadith of Abu Dawood talks even about the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ. كانت الكلاب تقبل وتدبر وتبول في مسجد النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ولم يكونوا يرشون من ذلك شيئا. So the dogs who used to go around the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ in and out, and sometimes even urinate, and they did not. ولم يكونوا يرشون من ذلك شيئا. And they did not basically try to clean that or purify that with water. But at any rate, so like street mud, you would be quite confident that it is not pure, but you treat it as pure because you treat the unknown as non-existing, because we're not going to tell people to examine street mud, figure out if it has najasa. Istihada, when it comes to istihada, and istihada is pretty tricky, because when it comes to istihada, let us say we start here, and so the woman basically had blood coming down for 23 days. 23 days. And this is istihada. This is istihada. Keep in mind, as long as any blood that is seen during the time of haid, during the time of the period, ولا يجاوز أكثره فهو حيض. كل دم يرى في زمان الحيض ولا يجاوز أكثره فهو حيض. Every blood that is seen during the time of haid and does not cross the maximum of haid. What's the maximum of haid? 15. What's the maximum of haid according to the Hanafis? 10. Which position do I believe in? The Hanafi position. Because medically speaking, there is no normal haid that lasts 15 days. You have haid for 10 days, you're actually getting a big workup to see what's wrong with you. So haid doesn't last 15 days. So the Hanafis are also أسعد حظاً بالدليل وآثار الصحابة. Not just that they are more consistent with the medical position, but they are basically more in line with Athar from the Sahaba, Ridwanullahi alayhim. 10 days. So, but anyway, talking about the madhab here, just for educational purposes, it's 15 days. So if it's 23, we're sure this is not haid. If you have 12, 13, that's fine. You still haid. It didn't cross the maximum. Okay, but once it crosses the maximum, we know that there is a problem here. It's not haid. For Hanafis, it's crossing 10. For the Jumhur, it's crossing 15, crosses the maximum. Then, what are we going to tell her? Like if it depends on Ada and Tamyiz and whether she has Ada, if she has Tamyiz. Let us say she has no Ada, no Tamyiz. What are we telling her? Like she doesn't have a recurring habit and she cannot discern the different types of blood. No Ada, no Tamyiz. Not discerning and no habit. We will tell her to do what? 67 days. She will do 67 days of considering herself in haid. Thereafter, she will not consider herself in haid. She will be as a mustahada, and the rulings of prolonged bleeding will take effect, and so on. Now, what about the period between 6 or 7 days and 15 days? That period could be haid, could very well be haid. But we will say here that since this is hard to know when her haid ends, then after 67 days, which is the usual period of haid for the children of Hawa, then we will consider anything extra to be what? Ma'doom. What if this is the first time she has her period? That's the first time she has her period. The first time she has her period, not even that. If the first time she has her period, it went for 5 days, just 5 days. The madhab says that she will not have a habit until it happens 3 times, back to back. Second time was 5 days. What they will tell her when she first sees the haid, they will tell her, after 1 day, we want you to have ghusl, and we want you to act like your haid ended. You're still seeing the blood, but act like your haid ended. When it comes to what? Praying and fasting. Okay. Then, another time, 5 days. Another time, 5 days. Okay, she has a habit. They will now tell her, since your habit is 5 days, you have to make up 4. You have to make up 12 days of fasting if you were fasting during that time. Why? Because we now know that your haid was 5 days. And when you fasted in this period, you were fasting while having haid. Therefore, that fasting doesn't count. Why will they not tell her to repeat the prayers? Because you don't repeat the prayer. You don't pray when you have your haid. But fasting is different, because fasting becomes obligatory on you while you have haid, but the ada performance is delayed. Prayer is what? The obligation does not descend on you to begin with. So fasting is different. So why did they do this? To be cautious about ibadah. Okay, so what is another common example on treating the unknown like non-existing? And maybe we will have to no, but the next one we ought to take the next one because it's an exception and it's very short. Okay, another good example on this qaida before we move on to the exception is what? إذا اختلطت أخته بأجنبيات ومذكاة بميتات. If one has a sister, or he confuses a sister with the rest of the girls in town. Someone did breastfeed with him, but we don't know which one in town she was. Now, if this was like one of a few, then you must avoid all of them. If she was mixed with the people of the town, girls in town, then you will treat that as non-existing. Because the unknown here would have to be treated as non-existing to do what? To remove hardship. The same applies to, not mudhakka bimaitat, it's maita bimudhakkayat. Same applies to whether there is like a dead goat that's mixed with or confused with 3 other goats. You will avoid all of them. What if the dead goat is mixed with the meat of the people in town? We know that one goat died and it was slaughtered and people did not give attention which one of the goats, we don't know. It's like a very large number of goats. We will treat this as non-existing. Now, جعل المعدوم كالموجود احتياطا is the opposite of this, treating the non-existing as existing by way of precaution. So, Ibn al-Najjar talks about this being of the evidences of fiqh, and we have two examples, two quick examples. The diya. When does the diya become incumbent? When someone kills another. When someone kills another, when does the diya become incumbent? Upon this. So, now, aren't we saying that the diya is mirath, that is inherited? Yes. So, how come it is mirath, inherited? Like, when did he get to pass it on to you? If it did not come into his ownership when he was alive, when did he get to pass it on to you? We will treat, yes. In this case, he's non-existing. We will consider him to be existing after he died, so that the diya gets into his ownership, so that he passes it on to you. Because it gets into ownership and passes on to you. What are the other rulings? The other rulings that will apply to inheritance? Will we pay off his debt from it? Yes. Will we execute his bequests from it? Yes. How come? You know, the guy didn't leave anything. It's just a diya. So, and the diya would have not, you know, when he is dead, you don't have the capacity, the ahliyya, to own. We'll treat him as if he's alive at that time. Okay, now the fetus, do we keep a share of the inheritance for the fetus in the womb? The fetus in the womb is known or unknown? Unknown. But we'll keep, even before ensoulment, the breathing of the soul, the fetus will get to inherit. This will get to inherit. So, by way of precaution, we're treating here al-ma'doom kal-mawjood, not only the unknown, the non-existing, like the existing. This one is going to be very, very quick. You know, it's just like 5 minutes, okay? الفعل الواحد يبنى بعضه على بعض مع الاتصال المعتاد ولا ينقطع بالتفرق اليسير. A single act is built upon itself when customary continuity is maintained and is not invalidated by minor interruption or separation. Minor interruption or separation. So when the Sharia asks you to do something that takes time, the Sharia demands muwala or succession. The Sharia is asking you to do something and it's demanding muwala or succession. If it is not demanding muwala or succession, we don't worry about it at all. It is demanding muwala or succession. Now, what about small interruptions, slight interruptions? And how do we define slight interruption? He said to you, al-mu'tad, al-ittisal al-mu'tad, customary continuity, defined by default by what? Custom. Okay. So a few quick examples. Wudu. You know, if there is no succession, there's interruption. Two positions in the madhab. You know, if they tell you basically a short interruption is not a breach of the required succession or muwala. How do you define short? Customarily or by the dryness of the limbs? Disagreement in the madhab. What is the formal position of the madhab? Dryness of limbs. Dryness of limbs in a moderate weather. Another issue is if you end your prayer out of forgetfulness and you resume, can you build on the 2 rak'ahs that you prayed? Yes, if there is no long separation. You ended your Salat al-Dhuhr, which is 4 rak'ahs after 2. Can you build on the two if there is no long interruption, separation. Yes. Next is if work in a mine gets halted, not out of negligence or anything, just a short interruption in the work in the mine for some excuse, and one returns to work, is it going to be, are we going to count everything that came out before and after the interruption as one to nisab or not? Yes. So, because if you mine out less than nisab, then no zakat is obligatory. If there is a long interruption from when you got to get out more, they don't add them up. They don't add them up. Whatever it is that you're gonna get without a long interruption, customary interruption for an excuse, came out to, go to the bathroom, came out to drink a sip of water, came out because, just went to the breathe. Correct. Unless there are items that are added up to each other, such as the currency, different types of currency are added up to each other. Currency, and according to our madhab, currency is added up to gold and silver. All of that is added to merchandise. So merchandise, currency, they get added up to each other. But other types of zakatable items, each one has its independent nisab. Now, tawaf is interrupted by a funeral prayer or an obligatory prayer. Do you build on, whatever you have finished? Yes. You start from where you stopped. We start from where you stopped. Even if we say succession is required. If a thief removes part of the nisab from its secure place, then re-enters and removes the rest. We know that, there is a nisab for the had of sariqa, punishment for sariqa. There is a nisab for the punishment of sariqa. What if you get out a nisab, but in 2 sessions? It depends on the separation between the 2 sessions. If it was a short separation, if it is a long separation, then you're clear. I mean, not clear, but and the final example is an infant who we know that خمس رضعات مشبعات يحرم. We know that خمس رضعات يحرم. The hadith of Aisha, خمس رضعات يحرم. Aisha said, they say مشبعات as a tafsir. So Aisha said that five sucklings will make one haram through breastfeeding. Haram through a mahram, through breast milk. What do we mean by a suckling? So from the time that he latches until the time he feels satisfied, he gives up. He feels satisfied, he gives up. What if he, coughs and goes back? What if he gets tired, fatigued, and goes back quickly to suckling? Is this 2 or 1? All right, so that's the قاعدة. قولوا قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.